When we think about what keeps India's massive economy humming, we usually talk about factories or software or the big service industries. But there's this invisible giant, this economic lifeline that makes everything else possible. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that unsung hero, India's logistics sector. And when I say giant, I am not kidding. Right now, the Indian logistics market is a mind-boggling 28 lakh crore industry. That's over $300 billion. And guess what? It's not slowing down. It's projected to absolutely skyrocket to nearly 42 lakh crore by 2029. Okay, let's get into how this whole thing works. So here's the plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at the basic building blocks of the industry. Then we'll tackle the big question, the profitability puzzle. After that, we'll dive into the incredible story of one company that's seen it all. And finally, we'll look at the three huge trends that are shaping the future for everyone. All right, let's start with the absolute basics. When we say logistics, what do we really mean? For today, we're going to focus on the real backbone of the whole system, which is road transportation. Okay, so how your package actually gets from point A to point B really comes down to its weight. If it's something small, like an e-commerce order under 40 kilos, it goes by express parcel. If it's a bigger business shipment, say up to 2,000 kilos, it'll share space with other stuff in what's called a part truckload, or a PTL. And if you're moving huge industrial goods, you book the whole thing, a full truckload, or FTL. Simple as that. Now, the industry we know today really caught fire around 2017. It was like a perfect storm. You had GST coming in, which basically created one single market across India for the first time. And then boom, the geo effect. Suddenly, hundreds of millions of people had cheap internet, and e-commerce just exploded. In just 4 years, the number of parcels more than doubled. This was a massive, massive opportunity for logistics companies to scale like never before. But here's the twist in the story. Despite all that crazy growth, for years, some of the biggest names in the game, companies like Delivery, were actually losing a ton of money. And that brings us right to the central puzzle of this whole sector. So that's the big question, right? Demand is through the roof, packages are flying everywhere, so why is it so darn hard to actually make a profit? Well, the answer really boils down to two critical levers that control the entire business. And those two levers are revenue mix and network density. Okay, let's break that down. It's basically about what kind of deliveries you're making and how efficiently you're making them, the types of services you sell, and how full your trucks are. That's what decides if you're making money or burning it. And this table just lays it out perfectly. See, not all deliveries are created equal. Far from it. At the top, you've got high-value business-to-business stuff like Air Express. That's where the high margins are. But way down at the bottom, you have the e-commerce parcels and quick commerce, which are known for having paper-thin margins and, let's not forget, a lot of product returns. So let's look at a classic, profitable player like Blue Dart. No surprise, their business is dominated by that high-margin Air Express segment. This gives them amazing pricing power and very few returns, which, you guessed it, translates to a very healthy profit. Now, let's flip that and look at a new-age player like Delivery. A huge 60% of their revenue comes from that low-margin express parcel business. This is precisely why you're seeing them make a huge push to grow their more profitable, business-focused part truck load service. They are actively trying to fix their revenue mix. And this chart just puts it all in black and white. Because of its focus, Blue Dart's average revenue for every single shipment is more than double Delivery's. That's not an accident, that's the direct result of their different revenue mixes. Now for that second lever, network density, which creates this beautiful thing called operating leverage. Think about it like this. The cost to run a truck, the fuel, the driver's salary, it's mostly fixed. It costs about the same whether that truck is carrying 5 kilos or 500 kilos. So once you've made enough money to cover those fixed costs, every single extra package you squeeze in there, that's almost pure profit. That is the magic of operating leverage. Okay, so we've talked about the concepts. Let's see how this all plays out in the real, messy world by looking at the story of a company that has managed to survive and thrive in this brutal industry for decades, the CCI Group. CCI's story is all about constant change. They started way back in '77 doing railway transport, but when that turned out to be unreliable, they totally pivoted to trucking in the '90s. Then they added warehousing in 2004, customs clearance in 2008. They just kept adding services, constantly tweaking the revenue mix to meet what the market needed. And this quote from the founder, Naresh Sharma, just says it all, doesn't it? While so many other big transport companies from that era just disappeared because they couldn't adapt, CCI is still here. They survived because they chose to change. This story from 1996 is just incredible. Get this, the general manager of a huge client, Philips, came to their office to teach them how to use a laptop for a presentation. I mean, can you imagine that today? It just shows this deep hunger to learn from their customers and shift from a traditional mindset to a truly corporate one. So really, CCI's success boils down to two simple things: being flexible and never, ever stopping the learning process. That's what allowed them to build custom solutions for clients and stay relevant while their competitors basically became dinosaurs. So we've seen how a company can adapt over time. Let's zoom back out and look at the whole sector. What does the future hold? Well, there are three massive trends that are basically defining the road ahead. And here they are. The three big forces you need to know about are consolidation, where the big fish are eating the small fish, technology being used as a competitive weapon, and the absolute explosion of quick commerce. So, this trend of consolidation is being driven by a massive risk: insourcing. Take this cautionary tale. The e-commerce platform Meesho was responsible for over half of Ecom Express's business. So when Meesho decided to build its own logistics network, it almost wiped Ecom Express off the map overnight. It's a brutal lesson that shows why being dependent on just a few huge clients is so dangerous. The second major trend is technology, and this chart shows you exactly why. If you automate your sorting centers, you can literally slash the cost of handling a parcel by more than half. At this scale, tech isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's about survival. It's how you achieve that network density and get that sweet, sweet operating leverage. And finally, we have quick commerce. I mean, look at that number. A projected growth rate of over 50% a year. That's just explosive. Getting groceries to someone's door in under 30 minutes is an insane logistical challenge, but it's also the single biggest new opportunity out there for companies who can figure it out. Which brings us to our final big question. India's logistics sector is really at a crossroads. For years, the story was all about growth, 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 no matter the cost. But now, as the industry matures, as the big players get bigger, and as technology takes over, the ultimate test is coming. Can this sector finally solve that profitability puzzle and deliver sustainable returns? The engine is definitely running, but the real question is, can it finally become a profitable one?